Hello and welcome to a basic explanation of how to use PGP. So PGP is short for Pretty Good Protection, and it's an encryption software that makes text unreadable, then uses a key that you have personally to make it readable again. And it encrypts it with a key that you can give to pretty much anyone in the world so that they can send you encrypted files that you can then decrypt and read yourself. Helps protect your information from attacks that are happening while your information is in transit from one person to another. But do keep in mind that if you have your unencrypted data sitting somewhere, then if someone gets to that unencrypted data, they can still access that because it just encrypts what you're sending from one person to another. So the method we're going to be using is RSA, which stands for Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman, which are the three people credited with inventing it. It uses two keys. There's one key that is public and one key that is private. The public key you can give to anyone who you want sending you encrypted information. They'll use this public key to make their information unreadable, send it to you, and then you will use the private key, which you will have personally, to decrypt this encrypted information. So the software that we're going to be using can be downloaded from gpgforwin.org, which is right here. We're going to use the download for Windows. And then we're going to run this installer. We're going to give it permission to run. And then we're going to run it in English next. All of the default values here are perfectly fine. That's all we need. And we're going to change the install location. Make sure you put it somewhere that you want it. I'm going to put mine on my D drive in my school file for this class that I'm in. And then once this installs, we'll be able to open up our software to encrypt our data. Kleopatra is the software that we're going to primarily be using, and it allows us to generate our own PGP keys, and we can then transmit those keys to other people and allow them to use those public keys to encrypt their data and send it back to us. So now we're going to leave it on Run Kleopatra, which is the software that we're going to be working with. And then down here in your taskbar, you'll have Kleopatra icon right here, able to run, and it should bring up this window. Now we're going to go to File, and we're going to click New Key Pair, and we're going to choose Open PGP Key Pair. So the details for this, we're not going to enter an email here yet. We're just going to enter a name. So I'm going to use my name, Brian. Next. And then I'm going to show all details. Oh, oops, sorry. I forgot to go to advanced settings. So advanced settings, we can actually change the size of the key material. And we're going to make this 4096 bits so that it generates a larger encryption key. And that's going to take us longer to send from one person to another, but it will also have a stronger encryption for whatever we send. So it'll make our stuff more secure. It just takes a little bit longer to generate. So we're going to create the key, and then we're going to enter a password for it. Whatever you do with the password, don't forget it. The longer your password is here, it's also more secure because brute force attacks can crack smaller passwords. Brute force attacks just means that they sit there and guess your password over and over and over again using automated software. So you want to try to use something that's pretty simple for you to remember, but long enough that someone won't be able to steal your information by just guessing passwords until they get yours. So now it'll create. This is going to take a little while because we chose the maximum setting for the size of the key. And then after this creates, we're going to go over how to export our key, which just means how to get that key onto our computer and send it to other people so that they can start encrypting their data. All right, Cool, so we can click finish here. And then what we want to do is we want to take this, we're going to right click on it, and we're going to export. We're going to export this. I'm going to put this in my D drive again, same file path as earlier, basically same place. I'm just going to make a new folder. And I'm going to call it PGP keys. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to call this public key Brian. I'm going to save it there. And then we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to export the secret key. So the secret key we want just for us. So private key Brian. Oops. And it's going to ask us for our passphrase. So again, just use your password here. Now our secret key is the one that we do not want to give to anyone because that is how we decrypt any given data. So now that we have our key, let's assume that I want to send it. So let's assume that this guy, Brypolk3, that's going to be Jim. And Jim wants to send mail to Brypolk4, we'll call him John. So if Jim wants to send mail to John, Jim wants to send his public key to John so that John can write a message, encrypt it with Jim's public key, and send it back to Jim. John needs to compose an email, and then John needs to go to his PGP keys in File Explorer, and it's wherever we exported our PGP keys to. So you see you have private key and public key. So what Jim needs to do is take his public key and put it into an email and send it to John. So John is going to be, just for the sake of this, it's going to be brypolk4@gmail.com. And we'll call this email encryption key. So we're going to send him this public key. Make sure it's the public. Private is the one that you keep for yourself. And then Jim, in just a minute, is going to get the email that has our key in it. Cool. So now we can download this key, and it should show up in our download folder. And we can go back into Kleopatra, and we can say import key from our downloads, public key Brian. So I'm not going to import this because it's already there. Since I'm only using one computer, I'm not actually sending this from one computer to another. But you would just click here, you would click open, I'm going to click cancel, and then it would come in here. You would have an imported key on your computer. You could then use this key to encrypt text. So if we go into a Word document here for a minute, let's just write a quick little message that just says, "Hi Jim, this is John," right? So I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go back into Kleopatra, and down here in our toolbar we have this little icon for Kleopatra. We're going to right click it, we're going to go to clipboard, and as long as that message is copied, we can click encrypt, and we can just encrypt it straight off of our computer's clipboard. Basically, the computer remembers what you've copied, and then if you take that and tell it to encrypt it, we can add recipient. We'll choose the key that we had just imported, click on OK, and then we'll click next, click OK again. Then we'll go back to here, and when we paste it, it'll have our encrypted text. So boom, now we have this whole PGP message. And it looks like a bit of a mess, but that's the point. Shouldn't be compromised by anyone trying to steal it. So we're going to copy this whole message. We're going to go back to our email, and we're going to go back to compose, and we're going to send this to Jim. So we're going to go towards Brypolk3. We're going to say encrypted message. And we're just going to send this whole massive message. And then Jim is going to go over here and wait until the email comes in. So Jim gets his encrypted message, right? So we're going to take this whole message and we're going to click it. We're going to click copy. And then we're going to go back to Kleopatra. And this has to be done on Jim's computer because Jim is the one that has the decryption key. He's going to click on decrypt. And he's going to enter his password. He's going to click OK. And the decryption has succeeded. So he now has the original message completely decrypted. He's going to go back into whatever text word he's using, and we're just going to paste this, and it should be our original message. See? All right, so that concludes our really short tutorial. Remember that PGP is great for keeping your stuff safe whenever you're sending it from one person to another and it's moving. The attacker is going to try to take your information while it's going from one person to the other, and they're going to get a whole bunch of text that doesn't mean anything to them. But if you're using this to secure your own information, keep in mind that if they find the I apologize, my microphone died. So if you send the original information that isn't, if you keep the original information on your computer and it's not encrypted, then you run the risk of them finding that original information on your computer. And you also run the risk of someone compromising your private key. So if anyone ever finds out what your private key is, your PGP information, your encrypted information, is no longer secure because they can use that private key to completely decrypt any encoded messages. All right, thank you.